Before we dive into today's episode, I wanted to tell you about this season's sponsors, Starboard, a brand that's been a huge support to us and a brand at the forefront of SUP racing for over 2 decades. If you watched any major races, you'll have seen their boards cutting through the field with their innovative designs and the distinctive colour of the board's nose. What sets Starboard apart is how seriously they've always taken racing. Their race boards aren't just fast, they're designed to be stable enough for newer racers to build confidence while still being competitive. Starboard work closely with world-class athletes to dial in their innovative designs, but they also understand that most of us are still learning and finding our racing legs. Plus, they're committed to sustainable manufacturing practices, which lines up with how most of us feel about protecting the waters we love to paddle. Their race boards and paddle collection has options for every level, and their website has detailed guidance which will help you find the right match for your experience and your racing goals. So if you're thinking about getting into racing or looking to step up your game, check out the Starboard website or just go along and check out the range at your local Starboard stockist, and all links to Starboard are in the show notes. Welcome to the SUP FM podcast. We're now into the 10th year of this podcast, and we're celebrating that milestone with you and with another great selection of special guests and episodes to inspire you on and off the water. In the next 3 special episodes, we're diving into the world of SUP racing. And if you've ever wondered whether it's for you, then this is the perfect place to find out. The first 2 episodes are for first-time racers or absolute beginners, and in the final episode of the 3, we focus on competing at an intermediate level of competition, encompassing those who have moved on from that beginners category and who are taking their racing a little more seriously. So subscribe to the podcast and make sure they're downloaded to your device as soon as they're released. These 3 back-to-back episodes are a fantastic introduction to SUP racing, no matter your age, fitness level or paddle experience. So let's get started. Welcome to this episode of SUP FM podcast, where we're going deep on SUP racing for first time or beginner racers. So if you're not sure what it's all about, you're tempted and just on the edge of taking part, or if you're learning about it here for the first time, we'll have you covered and hopefully push you over the edge and into taking part in this fabulous area of stand-up paddling. Just to say, there might also be some listeners here who are already racing and who want to revisit their foundations and see if there's anything fundamental that they missed the first time round. And we've absolutely got lots for you too. And in these episodes, we've got a number of great chats to get everyone up to speed. And to kick this off, I'm joined by Sarah SUP Junkie Thornely, who's been a regular contributor to the show over the years, particularly in the realm of racing. Sarah's far too modest to say this herself, but in 2024 she won the leading international recognition award given by the sport, which is the SUP Connect Woman of the Year as the popular choice, which recognised the work that she has done to champion SUP racing over the years. And of course, Sarah is also an ex-full GB national champion and also someone who's commentated and raced on far too many to name local races, national and international championship events. But the most recent one, which I will name, was your co-commentary on the ICF World Championships in Sarasota, Florida in 2024. So Sarah, welcome back to your seat here at the SUP FM podcast.
Hi, Simon. Thank you so much for having me. And I can just retire now. You've just given me the most wonderful send-off. And my palmaris there is just brilliant. Thank you so much. It's good to be here again and talk about something that I'm so passionate about, which is SUP racing. And especially if we can encourage those people who are sitting on that fence to just get involved a little bit.
Absolutely. And that was no more than your due in terms of a testament. And don't you go anywhere. You're not retiring anytime soon if I've got anything to do with it. So we're going to talk in detail about beginning to race your SUP, but it's important to talk first about what we mean by beginners, because beginner racers can come from 3 different directions and experience levels. Ultimately, they still need to get the same things right as they build their game, but by splitting them out, it helps us to target more on their own specific needs. So if you're interested in racing for the first time, then you'll recognise yourself from one of these groups. So let me just explain what I mean. So the first group are those people who have competed in sports all their life and fancy something new. So they're new to paddling, but they're not new to training and competition. So they get the competitive stuff and the high level performance, but they don't necessarily have the paddling to rely on when they come in. And the second group, which is probably the biggest group, which is those who've paddled for a while on a casual basis, adventure surfing, and they maybe want something new to aim for and get involved with to focus their paddling efforts. So they're not new to paddling, new to physical training, competition, and the sort of racing targeted approach. And then the third group, final group, which I'm going to call level 3, are the ones who are most on the fence about getting involved with racing. So those are the sorts of people who are new to paddling, so they haven't spent much time on the water, and they also haven't taken part in any competitions of any great note, possibly since school. So everything is new to these paddlers, but that group is curious about, what needs to happen to get them off the mark. So, Sarah, which of those 3 main groups would you have placed yourself in when you first started as a SUP racer?
That is a really easy one. Level 3. Never competed in anything apart from when I was probably 5, but let all the sports drop off. I had competed in one thing only, and that was when I was about 28 for a year. That was it. But that wasn't this kind of thing. So definitely level 3. Never paddled, never competed, never knew what it was like to train or have all that experience. So yeah, definitely a level 3, which makes me sound amazing.
Well,
level 3.
There you go. That's what we all think. But we've talked about your journey into racing before, but you didn't realise you were even competitive until you got out there. What was your first experience like? Can you remember pitching up to your first race? What were the emotions? What were your feelings when you first took the plunge?
I do remember it really, really well. I went with a girlfriend and she was sort of my inspiration to get into paddling. So I'd paddled for a little bit with my club, a regular social paddle, 5 or 6K or 7, always a pub involved, no big drama. I was on an inflatable board. Not a 10.6, a 12.6. I went straight for the 12.6. And the British SUP Club Championships was coming around, always held in September. And it was a club thing. So that was a really nice thing to do. And I just thought, let's have a go at that. All the club were doing it. So I thought, let's just join in. Don't remember being nervous because I didn't know what anything was about. My friend got me on the water, mass start. She just said, hang out the back. Don't get involved in the wash. She knew I'd never done anything like this before. So I did as I was told and hung out the back. And off they went and off I went and just paddled as hard as I could. Certainly hadn't done any training for it, just got involved really. And I finished it and I picked off a few people and I really enjoyed it. And at prize giving, and I didn't know anything about prize giving or age categories for any sport, because I wasn't a sporty person. And I got an age category. I came second in my age category. I was like, wow, this is pretty cool, getting a little medal. And I was like, okay, I think I'm quite competitive and I do not need to be racing on an inflatable board anymore. So, yeah, I remember it really well. And just being part of that club and that team and the whole vibe around that event, it was a really good event back then. It's not held anymore, unfortunately. But a really good event to get involved in. Yeah, fond memories.
Excellent. And it can be quite intimidating for anyone coming along to a race for the first time, particularly those level 3 paddlers. One of the fundamental questions for any new paddler is, what race do I choose? Because, you just need to get started, don't you, with whatever expectations you have around that race. The most obvious opportunity, I guess, in the UK at least, is Aqua Paddle. So let's start now by hearing from Brett from Aqua Paddle. So Brett, Aqua Paddle's a pretty unique concept. Could you just explain what it's all about?
Yeah, sure. In its simplest form, it is parkrun for paddlers. So if you're familiar with the free 5K run that parkrun has become a huge movement across the country, well, Aqua Paddle is a smaller version of that at the moment, and it's for paddlers. So any paddlers, any craft that you can paddle with your arms, bits of wood, or high-tech carbon paddles, then yes, you would join in. We don't allow rowers, though, because they're facing the wrong way. And the idea is that you can come along any craft and get involved. It's a mini paddling festival.
I mentioned it is a charity. So what's the underlying mission behind Aqua Paddle, and how did the idea for a free-timed 5K paddle come about?
It was around trying to keep people safe on the waterways. I set up a few years ago Ditton's Paddleboarding, which is opposite Hampton Court Palace. And each year, unfortunately, people lose their lives in the river. And it was like, and it's more around not knowing the dangers of the waterways, something that's obviously the RNLI, Paddle UK and others have been trying for many years to do. And over the pandemic, loads of people bought supermarket paddleboards or inflatable craft of all sorts, pink flamingos and unicorns and all sorts of things were floating out there during the pandemic. And it was like, how do we engage with these people in a gentle way as opposed to wagging the finger? And is there a better way of doing this? So the idea of our blue space sessions, so community-based mental health, physical health sessions for groups and people in need to be able to get out into the water. So going through to youth clubs and that sort of thing. And then it was like, well, how do we pay for this? Because coaching sessions aren't cheap. People need to be trained. There's equipment and so forth. And where we paddle is less than a kilometre from the origins of parkrun. And maybe we could do this on water. Some of the club members were already racing at the time. I'd just done my first head of the dart. And it was like, well, okay, there's something here. Let's see what we can do and put it together. And being very fortunate in meeting the right people at the right time. So one of the club members became a trustee. His wife had a lodger who turned out to be a brilliant developer. And without him, we wouldn't have the technology that is at the heart of Aqua Paddles. Like Parkrun is a tech company with a run attached. Aqua Paddle is a tech charity with a paddle attached and a charity building around it. So it's all about keeping people safe, but getting the tech out of the way of the organisers.
And we know from our own experience, safety education isn't necessarily a very exciting prospect. So I guess what we're talking here is you come for the community and the social contact and a bit of exercise, and you get a bit of safety information added on. Is that the basic principle?
That's the basic principle. It's that gentle introduction to safety. We'll chat to you. If you don't have the right bit of kit, well, hopefully we should be able to lend you some. If not, we'll keep you safe out in the water. And when you come back for the next event, hopefully we would have pointed you into the direction to be able to find the right bits of kit to be able to upgrade your experience.
Excellent. And obviously that experience of coming in and paddling alongside people and testing yourself in the park run type environment is the real draw. And of course, the other thing that it does is that it paddlers who may not have raced before into an environment which is sort of broadly similar, I guess, in terms of the organisation on the ground at a very high level. It's very similar to the race environment in that you've got the organisers and you've got the race number and you've got the timings and all of that stuff, albeit that Aqua Paddle is more of a competition against yourself rather than necessarily other people.
Yes, it's out of necessity, really. The idea is that it is a personal challenge. You get to the start line, even if you don't complete, you've got out of bed and you've got out on the water, ready to paddle. And getting that step there, you're a winner. So everything after that is just fun. And so we have your Aqua Paddle number, and you can personalise your number, which is a bit like a cherished number plate. It then also gives people that experience. They're on the start line. We either blow the whistle or shout go at them or blow a horn, whatever, and off you go. It's great fun experience to start. And because we allow people to start on their knees, and we encourage maybe some of the newbies to maybe start at the back of the fleet, they can see all that excitement ahead of them and get involved.
So it sounds like Aqua Paddle there does a huge amount of heavy lifting. You've got the potential exposure to a racing environment. You've just got the fun of the whole thing. You've got the safety education piece and the inclusion. And you've also got the social contact as well. So there's a lot going on there. So in terms of the absolute essential items of kit to bring to an Aqua Paddle, what would I need to bring along if I was taking part?
For a SUP, obviously your board, your fin, don't forget your fin, leash, buoyancy aid, and obviously your paddle as well.
Absolutely. I've turned up for a session before without my fin, and it ups the difficulty factor quite considerably if you're not tracking in a straight line. So if I decided that I wanted to get involved and come and experience an Aqua Paddle and get paddling out there with others, or even use it as a way to experience an organised event, what would I need to do in order to get onto one of those sessions?
So the first thing is to go to aquapaddle.org and sign up. It's a very short sign-up form. Choose what craft you're going to be paddling on. There's a small medical form and also your emergency contact details. And that's it. And the system sends you out reminders. And after the event, it will send you a note to say that the results are up. You get the results really quickly. We've built a very slick system that works.
Well, it's a brilliant initiative, Brett. And as I said, it does a number of different things to benefit paddlers of whatever sport they're involved in. Brett, thanks so much for your time and well done for all your fantastic work with Aqua Paddle.
Pleasure. Thank you very much.
So great to hear from Brett. Sarah, what do you feel about the opportunities that Aqua Paddle bring for paddlers in, I guess, all categories, but particularly those brand new level 3 paddlers?
Oh, I think this is Aqua Paddle, I think, has been a bit of a game changer in the UK. And I know that they want to go worldwide. Why not? It is such a great format. It's so friendly and inclusive. You can pitch up on any board, in fact, any paddle craft. It's not just stand-up paddleboards. And Brett, who is running it, is just so passionate about what he's doing. You have that all-important safety cover. You can go to that river, lake, and you know that safety, they've got your back, basically. It's 5K. You know it's 5K. There's no drama. It's generally a there and back. You'll experience that start line for the first time, which can be quite intimidating if you let it. You could fall in on the start line if there are many, many people there, because it's wishy-washy. And if you've never had that experience, then it's new. But if you're on a wider board, if that's what you've got and you're on something really stable, you just set off and you'll be absolutely fine. It's a great, great format. And you paddle out and you will go as fast as you wish. And then you can do it the next month, or in some places it's being held every other week. And you can check your time out. Now, what is more positive? I've done parkrun before. And what is more positive than checking your time and seeing that the next time you do it, you knock, a couple of minutes off your time or seconds or whatever. Anything like that really helps your confidence and to know that you're heading in the right direction, whatever you're doing, be it your paddle technique, your nutrition, your hydration, your general fitness, your general fun, it is working. So Aqua Paddle, I just believe is a brilliant, brilliant concept for paddleboarding. It's really helpful for those in that group just to be around people. And again, if it's a regular thing and you go to the same one, you'll get to know the same people and you'll start to build up that lovely community. And you may find that some of those are going racing elsewhere. And you can just tag into those and just go, right, give me my best advice. Tell me what to do. Help me out. Can you go with me? And people will do that. So it's a really good intro into SUP racing proper.
If people are starting to think about what events, that's a really nice one to start with. But there are loads of opportunities for new paddlers and beginner-friendly events. And I guess one of the easy ways, wherever you are in the world, the UK or further afield, is to look locally, because there may well be local paddle groups or SUP schools who run their own race series.
Yes, and we have a huge resource in social media, of course, to find those local clubs. It's where I started. I had that lovely family of club paddlers who then I went with to an event. So they gave me advice about, did I need hydration? Or it's just all the little things like registration. And the first time you go, you don't realize how quickly everything goes. Do you want to warm up? All those sorts of things. And those are the sorts of things that you can find out through your local school or your local club. We're really blessed in the UK with so many clubs, the length and breadth of our lovely country. And to get involved with one of those, they may well have someone who races in that club. They may well have one or two more, or they may have a race. There may be a racing club. My club was not a racing club. It was a social paddling group, but we had a couple of people who raced. I think that's your first port of call, to go with someone else. There's nothing nicer than going with someone else who's got a bit of experience, can talk you through it, and just sort out those little sort of nuances of what to do on the day.
Absolutely. It's all of that social bit that really help to relieve some of those nerves if you've got someone who can take you under their wing. And it's always worth at those events, particularly if they're beginner-friendly events, to pop the race director a message, or other people that are going. The better race directors and the better organisations will make some sort of arrangement to take you under their wing, or at least keep an eye open for you on the day. And there's no such thing as a stupid question. We've all forgotten our fin or forgotten our paddle or something like that at some stage. So it happens to us all. If you are browsing for beginner-friendly events, one clue is if there are races in the classification of surf-style boards. And these don't run across all formats, but they're generally run for bigger or different events. And those surf-style type events generally participated in by people who haven't really committed to the formal proper racing board. So they're likely to be beginner type level, or at the worst beginner adjacent. So if I was starting off, I was uncommitted at the moment. I just wanted to try out this new racing thing. I was coming along to a race, maybe a surf style type race. What would I need to do that? What sort of kit would I need? And I know different races need different stuff, but in general terms, I wouldn't need a 14-foot, 21-inch wide raceboard, carbon paddle and waist PFD to take part in a race, would I?
No, and especially if they've got that category, the first thing to look at within a race, just say the Battle of the Thames, which is where, my club historically had their really, really big race. And they had so many categories, from the elite racers. They didn't call it an elite class. It was a 14-foot class or a 12-foot-6 class. And then they had the surf style class, as you mentioned. And that is for people, they will absolutely these days categorize the length of board that you can enter in that. So there might be an upper limit in that particular class of a 10.8. So that anything under a 10.8, you can enter that. And it might be a 10.8 by 34, which is not the classic race board, but you can race on anything. And it's where an awful lot of people start. And why not? If that's the board you've got and you want to dip your toe in the water, not literally, don't fall off. Many people do. You can pitch up on any board, which is, it's got to be inclusive, hasn't it, Simon? So you just, again, take people's advice. You've got to look at the weather conditions on the day. That's really important. You've got to be safe. And with all these events, safety cover is key. It's how they get their insurance. It's how they're able to run their event. They have got the safety cover. So wherever it is, be it on a river, on the sea, on a lake, they will have the safety cover in place. So you can quite safely go there as if you're going on a social paddle, but join in a race and know that you've got safety cover around you to look after you. It's a great, great thing for maybe 20 quid or something. So kit, clothing is really important. You will, if you're putting in a lot of effort, you'll get very, very hot. Please don't wear a wetsuit for racing. You might need technical gear, but you can, if you're a runner, you can use your running technical gear. It's all pretty much the same. Hydration you might need depending on the length of race and the speed you're going. And that could mean a bladder pack. And again, the first time I used that, just take some advice and get someone to show you how to use it, how to fill it up. You don't want to be faffing around with that at the last minute. The race may say that you need to wear a buoyancy aid, and if that's what they're saying, that is probably because of possibly the conditions, or their insurance. It's not always their choice, the race director's choice, as to whether you get to wear a buoyancy aid. So be that a full PFD or a waist buoyancy aid. But you could literally pitch up on that day if the weather was good and the safety cover is there, pitch up with your board and your paddle and maybe a little bottle of drink on your board, the right clothing, and just have a go. You don't need it. It's only when you get into the more you know, the more you learn, the more you need. That's how it is in most sports, isn't it? When you're at the very beginning, you sort of need very little. But the more you go on, the more kit you might need.
Exactly. And that tip about wetsuits. I mean, obviously, if you're paddling in the depths of winter, then you'll need a bit more preparation. But essentially, it's best to dress cold. And if you fall in and then you get back on your board and you're a little bit cold from that, then that's nature's way of telling you to paddle a little bit faster, because that's the most reliable way of getting your temperature up. There's nothing worse than doing an endurance event and feeling too hot, because it just sucks away all of your energy and it's just a miserable experience. So that's a great tip. This episode is supported by Paddle UK, the national governing body for stand-up paddling in the UK, and the team behind one of the biggest and most exciting racing opportunities on the horizon. In 2026, the ICF Stand-Up Paddling World Cup is coming to the UK for the very first time on the sparkling waters of the English Riviera in Torbay. And it's a major moment for British SUP and a chance for international competitors to race on a world-class stage which is set against a spectacular backdrop that rivals any global venue. And if you're aiming to be there, whether you're racing for your country or for your personal best, the best time to prepare is now. The 2025 Super Festival, happening this September, will offer the perfect tune-up, elite-level conditions, coastal race formats, and a dry run at the exact venue that will be hosting the World Cup next year. So whether you SUP for fun or are competing for medals, come and join us early for a multi-day festival of SUP and get race ready on the Riviera. You can find out more about the Paddle UK Super Festival and the World Cup in 2026 by clicking the link in the show notes. I've been a fan of Oscar Propulsion well before they became a sponsor on the podcast, because I felt the effect of their clever technology when I was first handed one by a friend to try. Their new Flow Force paddle is the best yet and is extremely lightweight, and while it might seem a bit counterintuitive having cuts or slits in the blade, the hydrodynamics of this have been tested scientifically. From the very first stroke, it just felt right. It eliminated any paddle flutter and really gripped the water securely. The tech is designed to reduce the impact on your body by balancing the force distribution. It makes the stroke feel lighter, but it converts more of your effort into pure forward motion, meaning less fatigue and more efficiency. It's about making your time on the water more effective, helping you spend more time paddling and reducing recovery time. This is serious, innovative and game-changing technology which really makes an immediate difference. If you're curious about technology that helps you enjoy paddling more while being kinder to your body, then head over to the Oscar Propulsion website where you can learn more and see the exciting brand new Flow Force paddles. And if you see me on the water, please ask me, because I'd be very happy to lend you mine, but I do want it back. Thank you to Flow Force from Oscar Propulsion for their support for the show. Go to oscarpropulsion.com or follow the link in the show notes to find out more. So just in terms of a background, every race is different. It's in different locations, different conditions, but it's probably worth understanding the basic types of formats available. So there are lots of variations, but the elite championships, the sort of higher level ICFs and ISAs, tend to boil down into three main groups of racing, which is sprint, technical and distance. And obviously whatever happens at the higher level does tend to get sort of echoed down the chain. Could you just run through each of those formats?
Okay, so the sprints. Now, this depends on which federation you're going with, but there are two types of sprints. It can be a technical sprint or it can be a straight line sprint. So at the ICF World Championships in Sarasota, historically the sprints had been 200 metres straight line, but because of that location, they cut it down to 100 metres. And boy, oh boy, did that make it exciting. So that is now becoming a little bit of a format within the ICF, the other ICF events. Will they keep it to 100 metres all the time? It's just in that transitional state. The tech sprints are really, really exciting. So it generally involves a beach start, a very fast paddle out to a buoy turn, then back to the beach. So that could be 100 meters. I'm going to a race in Austria shortly, and that is what is happening. It'll be a beach start, 100 meters out, buoy turn, back to the beach. Bosh, you're done. There may be heats, depending on the amount of people involved. There may be heats, so you'll whittle down, and they'll have, say, 3 out of 6 paddlers qualifying for the next heat. Depends on the numbers. The other race is a tech race, so that's the tech is probably the most exciting race to watch. And recently this year, we've had a great tech race in Melilla in Northern Africa, which is I think it's part of Spain, and it was held down. They had great conditions, so they had waves. So again, it's a beach start. It's probably traversing around half a dozen buoys and then back to the beach. Now that could be between 750 and 1,000 meters long. And then you've got the distance, and that is what it says on the tin. It is generally between 10 to maybe 15K for ICF and ISA. Again, there are rules about that, but that's sort of generally what the figures are. It can be on flat water, as it was in Sarasota. So it was laps, mass start, which again is really exciting. If there's a buoy or two, it's not a tight turn. It's just giving you a direction, really, and then a sprint to the finish. And that can be on the sea as well. And you've always got the other paddlers looking after you. That is something that is plugged into these paddlers at every safety briefing. If someone is in trouble, you stop. It doesn't matter about your race. And that is what paddlers will do of any level. So from the, beginners surf class to the 40-foot elites racing on the ocean, they will stop and help another paddler. So they are the 3 disciplines. And yeah, it's definitely worth watching something like Total SUP and going back onto their, their live feeds. Look on Total SUP YouTube channel. Because they're now posting all those there. And it's good to just watch them and just see what is involved, what a beach start looks like. There's fantastic resources to watch races and just to get a heads up as to what we're talking about here.
Absolutely. So there are 3 formats. You've got the sprint, which is the explosive event. That's either straight line, point to point, or round a buoy and then back again. You've got the technical, which is a bit of a mixture. You've got a bit of distance, but it's more about manoeuvring around those obstacles and coming back. And then you've got the distance, which, as you said, this is what it is on the tin. And obviously the distances can vary. But in terms of a beginner, I guess if you're plugging into any of those formats, I think the approach that a lot of people go for to start with is those distance events, because they are generally pretty achievable depending on the conditions, but those are the choices that are out there and available. Just to mention another much missed variety of racing, certainly in the UK, which was a single brand race series. So again, that was a really good opportunity for beginners to test out their chops in a racing environment. It was called Nisco. It was a single type of board which everyone competed on, and then that way it takes away all of the individual factors like 14-foot really skinny boards and cutting edge technology and so on. Everyone was competing on the same thing. That finished unfortunately a few years ago in the UK. You were a huge lover of that format, but back in September at the Super Championships in Torquay, we launched a race which was similar to that, wasn't it? It was a single class of racing. So again, if there are those sorts of races around and you're a beginner, that's also another format it's worth looking out for.
Absolutely. And anybody who mentions the UK Nisco championships, people sort of get a glazed look in their eye because we have such fond memories, and so many beginners started there and have gone on to big things, huge things. And they were fabulous, absolutely fabulous, because again, as you say, it took away that, your board is bigger than mine kind of thing. It was tough racing as well. You're racing on a 12'6", 30-inch wide inflatable board. It was tough. But Glyn Smith, who raced in most of those races, is desperate to bring it back. And he has got a race, I think it's called Not the Nisco, and it's running. It's in its 2nd year now. So look it up on my on the SUP Junkie race calendar, which you'll find on my social media channels, because that's very well worth supporting. And you don't have to have a Nash Nisco board. You can use other inflatables. But something that is also happening now is that classes are being put together with just a certain type of board. So going back to that one design, I think race directors are realizing that it's pretty important to get people racing against each other on almost exactly the same boards. So that is actually making a comeback, which is really exciting. And I'd love people to support Glyn as well, because he's so passionate about it. And but yeah, they were very happy days. And as I say, got a lot of people into racing for sure.
It's a bit like the journey to taking up the sport in the first place. I periodically ask guests on the show how they started, and inevitably it's just one time they rented a board or something and they just got connected. And it's very similar, I think, with SUP racing, because there's a particular culture on the beach. Everyone helps everyone. It's part of the safety culture as well, and it's a warm culture when people get ensconced in it. So yeah, and Nisco, much lamented, but coming back with Glyn, which is fantastic. So also, as part of the events that we both have been involved in, that there's been a number of initiatives to try and get beginners onto the water in races, first-time races particularly. And we had first-time paddlers coming along to SUP 12 this year. If you did want a lower-pressure beginners event, it works. And you think paddling for 12 hours wouldn't be the ideal event for a beginner, but the format does lend itself to that sort of participation, because everyone's in one place. You get instant feedback as you complete the laps, and it is a really good way of immersing yourself into the racing vibe, because everyone has to be there together, and it's a great culture. So there was an initiative by Red in order to bring new paddlers in. Do you want to just tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, Zero to Hero was the initiative that Red came up with, and they helped 6 paddlers who were complete beginners to racing, had never raced before. That had to be the criteria for putting your name forward. And 6 paddlers were chosen. They were suited and booted beautifully by Red, and you couldn't have better equipment to start your journey on, really. I think they were on 12-foot-6 boards, which is great. And they had a lesson beforehand. But as you say, starting with, a whole group of people, I'm always amazed with SUP 12 how many beginners there are anyway who never paddled on the sea or have never raced, and they're entering a 12-hour race. But as you say, they come off each lap, they can stop. They can stop completely, or they can have a break for an hour and go back out again. It's a great format, and as always, great safety cover. But yeah, Red did a really good job of inspiring those paddlers. There are a couple of ladies there who we both know, Susanna Sups and Magic Beans, Lizzie, and they have never raced before. They've done a lot of paddling. They know about safety. They're very well versed in paddling, but they'd never raced, and they'd never wanted to. That wasn't their vibe. But they put themselves forward. Susanna wasn't part of the Red initiative, but Lizzie was for sure. And she'd looked at SUP 12 the year before, and then this initiative came up, and I just went, come on, get stuck in. So she did.
Yeah, absolutely she did. And here's Lizzie to answer a few questions about her first racing experience, which she had at this year's SUP 12.
Hi, Simon. Firstly, I just wanted to say thank you so much for asking for me to be involved on this podcast episode. I am really excited. So I am going to read off the questions. Okay, question 1. Can you explain what your SUP experience was before you entered the race? So I'd class myself as a fairly experienced paddleboarder, just in the sense that I have clocked up many, many miles over the years and paddled in a variety of different conditions and water bodies. So I'd like to say that my skill set is very suited to the type of paddling that I do. I do call myself an adventure paddler, which is just somebody who really enjoys the freedom that you get with being on the water, all the way through from just enjoying a sunrise or a sunset to day trips to some really cool landmarks, or those multi-day adventures that involve camping on your board as well. And I love the fact that as a solo paddleboarder, I can soak that all in my own time. But I guess that means the one thing that I do lack is speed. And leading on to the next question, which was, did I ever consider myself being a racer or did it ever appeal to me? The answer would be no. When I think racing, I think speed, and that's the one thing I lack. So yeah, I didn't really ever think that racing would be for me. Leading up to the race, what were your biggest expectations or perhaps fears about competing for the first time? My biggest expectations probably couldn't have been further from the actual truth, because before attending a SUP race, I thought the racing community were going to be extremely cliquey and unwelcoming to newbies. That paired with my fears, which were just mainly around being judged by everybody. I thought that I'd be judged for how slow I was, for falling in, and also for just not really knowing what I'm doing. But that's not the case. And the things I'd tell myself now would be, while I still feel as though those feelings are valid, because you're always going to have that kind of fear of the unknown until you do something, I also just wish that I hadn't let them grow inside my head to put me off entering a race or an event until now, because I wish I'd done it sooner. What was the atmosphere like at your first SUP race event? Did you feel welcomed as a beginner? It was incredible. It was so welcoming, and the atmosphere for the whole day was just so much fun and pretty much everything you'd want your first event to be. So yes, very welcoming and just incredible experience. Can you describe the feeling of being on the water with other racers, especially at the start? You know, that's probably one of the key takeaways from SUP 12, which I took part in, was being on the water with so many incredible athletes and professionals within the sport. And it was such a nice, overwhelming feeling of excitement, though. I can't explain it. I really can't explain it. It just drove me on more. Like, it gave me more oomph to be able to do the paddling and to make it through the endurance race. Did you find yourself interacting with other paddlers during the race? Yes. And you know, I feel as though that probably actually made the whole event even better, is how friendly people were on and off the water. Every time somebody overtook you, they passed you, or you're going in the opposite direction to somebody, they would spur you on with words of encouragement. And it's just not something that I expected to happen. So it really did make the experience better, especially as a first timer. And luckily for me, I actually took part in SUP 12 as part of Brendan and Red Paddle Co. Zero to Hero initiative to get first time racers basically into a race. And I managed to meet up with Emma, who is one of my fellow Zero to Hero paddlers, on, it must have been like the third lap or something. And then we paddled the rest together. And it was just really nice to be able to have somebody there to be able to chat to keep you going and to offer encouragement. Yeah, by the final 2 laps, we were paddling as a 3. So it was me, Emma, and then Tony, who was also part of the initiative. And it was great. I think it made the whole experience for me. For someone feeling nervous about their first race, what would you tell them to help manage those feelings? Does focusing on having fun and not taking it too seriously resonate with your experience? I think that's probably great advice, though, for anything in life, not just SUP racing, but have fun, don't take it too seriously, and enjoy being in the moment. So I definitely agree with that. But if you are nervous about entering a race event because you're not sure what it's going to be like, you don't know what the conditions are going to be like, I was in that position and I was so nervous. And I think even you, Simon, noticed that I was incredibly nervous the night before during registration. So I would say, and it sounds really cliche, just feel the fear and do it anyway. You've got to push through those fears to know that it's not as scary as you thought it was going to be. And it may even give you the bug to want to sign up to another race. Based on your experience, would you recommend that other beginner paddlers give racing a try? There's only one logical answer I can give to this question, and that is a big fat yes. Why wouldn't you want to enter a race? I mean, actually, I know the answer to that because there's loads of reasons why I didn't want to enter a race. But now that I've done it, I can say that it's an incredible experience. It's a challenge, and who doesn't love to be challenged? So yeah, if you want to give it a go, something like the endurance event SUP 12, which is what I took part in, or something like the Super Champs or one of the fun races at one of the GB series, then yeah, I think everybody should try it at least once, because you never know, you might love it.
She was really nervous. She was looked after, and she finished the day, and she just thought that the whole racing vibe was amazing. You know, she's not really met those people before or spent time with those people before, but she did on this particular day, and it really inspired her to think about coming back and maybe getting stuck into another couple of events.
Yeah, and huge thanks to Lizzie for her very honest assessment, and it was great that it worked out so well for her. And here's our other first-time racer, Susanna, with her assessment of her experience.
Hi, Simon. So I'm just coming to you with my responses to your questions for your podcast. Obviously, I'm wearing my SUP 12 finisher T-shirt from Shorties. So I'll just go straight into the questions that you've asked. Expectations versus reality. Well, before the race, I'm a leisure paddler. I've been paddling for about 7 years, very active in the Dorset SUP group. I host full moon paddles, attend a lot of the events that they do. I also love a solo paddle. You know, I'm essentially a leisure paddler, and I love it. You know, I just love the headspace. I love the environment, being at one with nature, just being out in the water, the exercise. Yeah, just all the reasons why we probably all just love it so much. So on the lead up to the race, I was obviously really, really nervous. The minute I'd signed up for it, I started to get nervous. So I knew I had to do lots of training and kind of change my whole view of paddleboarding and get into the mindset of actually, you know, the endurance side of things. I'd got myself a lovely new hardboard from Starboard. So it's a 14 by 28. It's a touring board, but essentially I bought it to use for the event. I knew that it would be good on the sea and also a good board for me to keep using moving forward. I actually spent a lot of time on the water beforehand doing some longer paddles, kind of 20 to 25k, which was completely out of my comfort zone. I think the longest I'd done was 15 before that. So yeah, really, really enjoyed doing the longer paddles. Nothing can really prepare you for 12 hours on the water. I think the longest we did was 5 or 6 hours. Yeah, so I had some great training partners. We all entered the race individually. I obviously entered the race as a charity fundraiser for Above Water. So that was my main kind of reason for entering, was to raise as much money as possible for them. So a big part of the training that we were doing was going out onto the sea, especially going out in windy conditions, because we knew that, you know, potentially it could be windy. And it was. And yeah, we were just practicing in all sorts of water, really, which I wouldn't usually have done. You know, I would usually only go out if it wasn't windy, you know, if the conditions were calm. So that's something that I've taken away now that I'll carry on doing, is going out, you know, regardless, as long as it's not blowing a gale completely and it's safe to do so, obviously. So that was really important to me, that, you know, before the race, to get that preparation right. And I did ask for lots of advice from people who race and do endurance racing, and they gave me some, you know, brilliant advice. So the event itself and the atmosphere was just absolutely brilliant. From the moment we registered the night before, it was, you know, everyone was buzzing, and, you know, we got our numbers, and I got talking to obviously you and Sarah, and yeah, it just felt great. Nervous, but yeah, it felt really good. And then on the morning of the event, yeah, I have to say I was nervous. As soon as I got onto the beach at 5:30 in the morning and we started setting up our little area, the nerves did kick in big time. Then we had the most beautiful sunrise, which was great. And then obviously I saw you and Sarah and had a chat, and, you know, you guys obviously amazing, and put my mind at rest. And then, yeah, on the start line, we kind of said, the girls that I was training with, we said that we would let the hardcore racers go before us, and then we would go. And that's what we did. We all lined up together, which was amazing. And then, yeah, they just went, and we waiting for a bit of the wash to disappear. And then, yeah, then we went for it. And yeah, it was quite tricky. The first 2 laps were really bumpy, and then I found my sea legs, and yeah, it was okay after that. But it was great out on the water. You know, everyone was just so friendly. I saw a few people that I obviously know, and met a few people that I've been following on Instagram for years. We've been following each other. So we had a little chat, on the way round, and that was really, really nice. I also got some really good advice from a couple of the kind of hardcore racers out on the water, don't go up that way, go this way, and you'll be better off if you do that. And just some really, really great advice. Such a friendly group of people. I love the SUP community. And I was always a bit nervous about racing, because it's not my thing. But everybody made me feel so welcome and so comfortable. I can see why people, really get into their racing, just for the camaraderie and the kind of social side of it as well, not just for the racing itself. So for anyone that's thinking of entering any races, I can't recommend it highly enough. So essentially, I'm a leisure paddler, but now I've done a race. Does that mean I can be join the racing fraternity?
So that's Susanna there. Wasn't that great to hear?
Susanna was incredible at having never raced. To get that affirmation at the end that you've done this, you've done this to whatever level, be it an hour or two, or paddled throughout the day for 12 hours at your own pace. To get that affirmation that you've done that is a really big thing to make you want to do more, for sure. But no, sub 12 for beginners certainly doesn't sound like a beginner's race, but it is almost perfect.
So we've covered what sorts of races people could look at. Something that it might be worth covering, particularly for those very, very new paddlers, is talking boards. And it's not really a consideration because you compete with whatever board you've got. But we've talked about different lengths of boards. And I think it's probably fair to say at this point, if you're not aware of the functional difference of different size boards, the longer boards generally create something called glide, which means that you get better bang for your buck in terms of your paddles. You get more sort of movement forward. So those 14-foot boards tend to be the standard race class for the sort of elite level now in pretty much every format, really. And those are the top performing boards that you can get. 12'6" was an old race class, which is sort of coming out of fashion a bit now. And then the 10'8" or 11'6", which I've got, and the 12'2", which you had. That's the sort of surf style type length. But as we said, you can compete on any length of board, but the difference is the glide between those. Right. So let's focus in briefly on the three types of beginner paddlers that we might see out there. And let's start with those Group 1 beginners. So those are people who have a past competitive sporting background, who've come to racing late, so they get the competition and the performance and the training pieces, but they're new to the SUP parts of it. And speaking specifically in the UK, we've got some very high-performing examples of people who started in that group, haven't we?
We have. I mean, the names that spring to mind, actually someone that I used to race with, Christine Anderson, she was in my class, and she was just wonderful. She had a huge sporting palmarès with windsurfing, at a high level, and Mr. Ryan James as well. Whenever we think about stand-up paddleboarding, his name has to come up for sure, doesn't it? And he's competed in all sorts. So, is their transition easier? Yes, it probably is, because they know sport, they know competition, they know they'll be fit, they know about nutrition and hydration and that kind of thing. So it's just a transfer of skills over from one sport to another. So yeah, their journeys for sure is going to be a bit easier. But we've got some big names. Marie Buchanan, again, another one who's done, high level sport, multiple sport, and is still racing on a stand-up paddleboard, and do SUP related thing. But yeah, those people have possibly had a bit of an easier time. But once they get racing, it's as tough for them as they're at their beginning journey on a stand-up paddleboard. Exactly right.
So we won't spend too much time with that group because they kind of understand the territory, albeit from a different environment. So Ryan, you mentioned GB level triathlete and cyclist and all sorts, and there are plenty of examples within the sport. So that sort of group of people just really need to work on their SUP specific skills and the parts of the body to support it, which might be different. And I guess that group also might be more aware of the value of coaching and what a difference that makes as well. to helping them go quickly and work effectively, and to basically provide that shortcut. We're talking later to Larry Kane, the coach's coach, and coached a lot of world champions and Olympic level athletes. And he operates on a platform called Paddle Monster. So go and check out what they do. Or for those people within that category, tie in with a local coach. And I guess the advice for everyone, whatever level of beginner you are, is that you could teach yourself, but it's far more effective and far quicker to get faster results through a coach. And certainly those level 1 people need results, and they need them now. So, preaching to the choir, I'm sure, with those people. So moving on into group 2, which is the paddling beginners. So these are the guys who are no strangers to paddle boards. They definitely know which way round to hold their paddles, but they probably haven't been paying much attention to racing or competition until now. And again, this is probably volume wise, quite a rich group. So could you recognise anyone who fell within that category from your experience of racing in the UK?
Well, I mean, the 2 girls that I've just mentioned, for sure, Magic Beans, Lizzie and Suzanne SUPs, they very much embody those paddlers. It's those kind of people, when I talk to them, that I almost nag them to have a go. There are hundreds of those people, thousands of those people up and down the country who are in that category 2, and I would love all of them to just have a pop at race. They're really lucky because they've got the stand-up paddleboarding skills. It's a little bit like my transition to SUP surfing. I had the paddleboarding skills, so my transition to that was slightly easier than starting afresh. So if you've got those skills and you've been paddling for a few years, people might get a bit bored of just pootling up and down the river and think, what else is there for me to do? Well, there's an awful lot out there for you to do, and one of those things is SUP racing. So why not have a go? There's SUP surfing, there's whitewater SUP, there's SUP adventures, huge SUP adventures, but SUP racing is one of those. So if you're paddling around a reservoir and you're getting a little bit tired of it, or you haven't explored much, have a go. Just have a go, because you might very well surprise yourself. And you might go
Absolutely.
far as well.
It's just another string to your bow. And of course, if you are into adventure, it helps your base if you train as if you're a racer, even if you don't take part. So Bruce Kirkby being an example, a Canadian adventurer and writer, he's been coached by Larry Kane, and his fitness has absolutely skyrocketed, which helps him in his adventurous pursuit. But also, if he did want to take part in a race, he'd be absolutely ready to do it. This group of people tend to be the ones who produce the instant results. So I guess if they were just going to step up and take part in a race for the first time, in comparison to the other 2 groups, I guess they would be the ones who've got the SUP skills, who've got a bit of a base. They're probably going to do best out of the box. Individual exceptions apply there, but they've got the SUP skills. They just need to get those competitive elements in there. And I guess the one disadvantage that this group has is, if you've been paddling for a while, you've probably developed your technique already, your paddling technique. And if you want to be effective, you need to absolutely hone that. So this group have the disadvantage of having to disassemble their old way of paddling and incorporate a new way of paddling. But of course, that comes once you've gone through those initial races, and if you really want to do that. So let's finish off just quickly with this run through these completely artificial categories that I invented for the purposes of this show. So that level 3 paddlers. So we've already talked quite a lot about those already. And there's a bit of a mental journey about doing an event where they're new to competition and new to paddling. So mentally coming in and sort of exposing yourself in a completely new environment, it could probably be the most difficult thing that these guys have to do. And they have quite a high learning curve. So I guess you start with the choice of race. My advice would be, if you're choosing the perfect approach, and if you're not comfortable with ocean conditions, then probably not best to start on a sea course if your experience is just canals or flat lakes. However, having said that, there are some races in ocean light environments which are popular and may well be suitable. So in the UK, we've got Head of the Dart and SUP the Creek and various other races which are tidal, but not necessarily open ocean.
Yeah, and we've got so many great races to have. There are, and lots of clubs hold their own races, and you might just be starting with a club race of 3 to 5K. What a great place to start. You've got your club, you know these people. They'll talk to you about kit and everything. So, and then you've got the bigger events like the Head of the Dart, and obviously with GB SUP, you have got the Challenge Tour within that, and Aqua Paddle as well, which is brilliant. You've got a regular 5K race that you can partake in, and contact the organisers, as you said earlier. Contact the organisers, speak to people who've been and done it, and just glean as much information as you can about it and make yourself feel more comfortable with, knowledge is key, isn't it? And there's a great saying, be prepared. Don't be afraid of sucking at something new. Just embrace it. We were all there, when I was on that start line, I knew nothing about it. And that is where almost everybody starts. We all start at the beginning. And with the SUP community, we're a really friendly bunch and people will help you. So yes, have a look at the list of races that are on. Choose one that's local to you, inland possibly. Yes, that will be more favourable with weather conditions. It doesn't mean say it'll be any easier, but it'll be a little bit safer for you, much more fun experience. And start at a distance that you may have paddled for a long, long time. You might have done a regular 5K and you might have been maybe even doing your own little TT, or you may know your time. And you may go, oh, I'm going to train a little bit harder and get a little bit faster. So yeah, just get involved with any of the races that are around, because there are so many, and that can be club, national level, the series or whatever. There's plenty out there.
Yeah, it's all about cutting yourself a bit of slack when you go there. How you perform in your first race isn't going to be where you finish your season. And it's just that first move, getting started is the thing. Manage your expectations and get involved. You don't need to do step back turns on your first race. You can add skills in as you go. If you think you're going to place, you're probably fooling yourself, unless you're Sarah SUP Junkie Thornely, get your second place in your age group in that first race. But, just treat that first race as a fact-finding mission to see if you like the culture and if you even want to get better. But yeah, generally it's a supportive culture, welcoming, inclusive, all of that stuff. And, other tips, as we've said, contact the organisers, race directors, and they're generally really happy to give advice. And if they understand their business in any way, they do want new racers. Brands want new racers to join. We want new racers to join because there's a huge vibe, at these events between racers, which is really special. And if you do require any advice, if you've got any burning questions, then I'm certainly, and I know you, Sarah, would be more than happy to receive DMs or whatever, if it's, just to point people in the right direction. Right. Okay. Well, that's good. That's a really comprehensive run through some of the frequently asked questions. So, Sarah, if you were to summarize all of the stuff that we've had running throughout our episodes around new paddlers, introducing them, what final words would you leave them with to encourage them to take up paddle racing on one occasion or hopefully well off into the future?
Try something new. It's really good for us to try something new. Push ourselves a little bit out of that boundary. We're talking about water, which can be incredibly dangerous or incredibly safe. If you fall off in the water, you're generally having a pretty soft landing. You've got the safety cover around you. I just say to everybody, have a go, because until you do, you just may not realise that what is within you is something quite different than what you think. You may be inside, tucked away. There may be that really fierce, really competitive person who goes on to great things, and you just may never have known about it. You may go and race, and that may not happen. You may go, hey, that was great fun. Maybe not, it's not for me. So give yourself the opportunity of finding out what might be hidden in those depths. I dare you to do it. We're all new. We are all new the moment you step on that line. If you've never done it before, we are all in that same position. Don't believe when you go to these events that everybody on that start line has done this many times before, because there could be half a dozen who have never done it before. So don't ever believe that you're the only one. Just ask questions. As you said, no question is stupid. We've all had those questions. I still ask questions all the time. And the SUP community are awesomely brilliant at being supportive. So they will help you along the way. So it's a friendly community. Once they're on the water, those elite guys, or if someone is very competitive, they are gunning for you and gunning for it. But off the water, they will help you in any way possible to make your transition into SUP racing a fantastic one. So please, please, please give yourselves a chance. Have a go.
Yeah, I can say no more than that. Mic drop from Sarah, SUP Junkie Thornely there. Thanks very much for joining us. We hope that we've inspired you to take your board down to a race at some point this year. And as I mentioned, if you have any questions or need any advice, then there are plenty of people who are available to answer. We have links in the show notes, and feel free to reach out to either of us in order to get any clarification or to be pointed in the right direction. Thank you for listening, and see you on the water. A huge thank you to Sarah, Brett and our other guests for joining us on the show, and thank you for listening all the way to the end. If you enjoyed this episode, the best way you can support us is by telling just one friend about our show. You can also help us keep the podcast afloat by visiting our sponsors, and you'll find their details and their links in the show notes. Don't forget to subscribe or follow the show so you never miss an episode. And until next time, take care, and we'll see you on the water.